My name is Shelly Adams. I'm 31 years old, and last Friday was supposed to be one of the best nights of my life. Instead, it became the moment I realized just how dangerous love can be when it turns into resentment. The rooftop bar glowed with string lights that cut through the cool night air. Below us, the city pulsed with energy cars streaming like veins of fire. My colleagues from across departments had gathered to celebrate me, my promotion to senior manager, after 5 relentless years of grind. Every handshake, every congratulation felt like validation. The air smelled faintly of champagne and roasted garlic from the catering tables, and for once I let myself believe I'd earned this. Then Nick arrived. He was late as usual. My boyfriend of 3 years, Nick 29, strolled in with that half smirk he wore when he was already irritated. His tie was loosened, his hair slightly messy, like he had argued with himself in the car before walking in. When our eyes met, I searched for pride. Instead, I found annoyance. "Traffic?" I asked softly when he finally reached me. "Something like that," he muttered, brushing a quick kiss against my cheek before glancing around unimpressed. Nick had been off about this promotion since the moment I told him. He joked that I'd become a corporate robot or that I'd forget the little people. I told myself he was just teasing, but the sharpness behind his words lingered. The evening carried on. My boss Marcus called for attention, tapping his glass. His voice carried warmth. Tonight we recognized someone who climbed from entry level to senior management. Not through shortcuts, but through talent, persistence, and grit. "Shelly, you are proof that hard work is seen." Applause erupted. My chest tightened as colleagues smiled at me. My hands trembled around my glass. Pride swelled in me, but so did tears I tried to hide. And then I saw it. Nick standing off to the side, rolling his eyes. Not subtle, not private. He wanted me to notice. My stomach dropped. Marcus lifted his glass. "Here's to our newest senior manager, Shelly Adams." Everyone raised their glasses in unison. It should have been my perfect moment. But Nick's voice cut through like a blade. "Don't let this go to your head, babe. You're still the same loser I met 3 years ago." The world froze. The rooftop buzzed silence instantly, leaving only the faint hum of city traffic below. 40 pairs of eyes swung to me. My team, the executives, even interns who looked horrified. My boss's hand frozen mid-toast. The clink of glasses that never met. I looked at Nick. He wasn't ashamed. He wasn't flustered. He wore a smirk like he had delivered a clever punchline. Like publicly humiliating me was some kind of power move. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. My cheeks burned hot, my throat tightened, but I forced myself to breathe. I would not cry. Not here, not for him. I lifted my glass higher, my voice steady though, my insides shook. "You're right. I am the same woman. The one smart enough to know when to walk away." Gasps rippled across the crowd. I set my glass down, smoothed my jacket, and turned to Marcus. "Thank you all for coming," I said evenly. "Please enjoy the rest of the evening." Then I walked away. My heels clicked against the stone floor, each step echoing in the stunned silence. Behind me, Nick muttered something I didn't bother to catch. I didn't look back. I let the city lights swallow me whole. By the time I reached my car, my phone was buzzing in my clutch texts, missed calls, notifications stacking like falling dominoes. Nick was already spiraling. But that night, one truth burned brighter than the skyline. The man I thought I loved had revealed himself, and the mask wasn't coming back on. And I had finally learned to stop making excuses for cruelty disguised as jokes. I didn't sleep much that weekend. Saturday morning sunlight streamed through my friend Maya's apartment blinds, but my phone's glow was harsher. 47 missed calls, 83 unread texts. I scrolled through the highlights. "You humiliated me. How could you leave me there? Your coworkers think I'm a monster. I had to Uber home. You owe me. It was just a joke. You're too sensitive. This is your fault for making such a big deal." Then came the voicemails, Nick's voice shifting from sobbing apologies to screaming accusations to hollow promises he'd never keep. What stood out wasn't his pain, it was his refusal to acknowledge what he had done. Everything was about him, about how I embarrassed him, about how I made him look bad. By Sunday afternoon, he had taken his tantrum public. Maya shoved her phone at me with wide eyes. "Shelly, look. On Instagram, when your girlfriend can't take a joke. Fragile ego. Toxic femininity is real." Underneath, comments were pouring in. "Wait, what happened?" "Girl, you called her a loser at her work party." This feels like missing context. Someone from my company even replied I was there. "You embarrassed her in front of her boss. That wasn't a joke." An hour later, the post vanished. But the damage to us was already done. Sunday evening, when I knew Nick was at his sister's, I finally went back to my own apartment. The place felt different, like it was holding its breath. His sneakers by the door, his jacket slung over the couch, his cologne still lingering faintly in the air. I didn't hesitate. One by one, I pulled his things from my space-folded shirts, random cables, half-used, toiletries, stacks of video games he never finished. Years of our life fit neatly into 5 boxes and 2 suitcases. That was it. 3 years, 5 boxes. I stared at them lined up like coffins and whispered to myself, if love can shrink to cardboard, maybe it wasn't love at all. I changed the locks. Legally. The lease was in my name. The moment the locksmith clicked the new bolt into place, something inside me loosened for the first time in years. Still, I braced myself, because Nick wasn't the type to let go. And I was right. By dawn on Monday, my phone lit up again. This time, not just texts, but his car, parked in front of my office building, waiting for me. Monday morning, 7 Huzru a.m. The air was cool, tinted with the faint smell of asphalt and coffee drifting from the cafe across the street. I eased my car into the office parking lot, already rehearsing how I'd greet my team after the awkward silence of Friday night. And then I saw him, Nick, leaning against his car like some rom-com lead, a Starbucks cup in his hand, wearing that smug expression he always put on when he wanted control. My stomach sank. He straightened the moment I pulled in, pushing off the hood with too much enthusiasm. He looked like a man ready to reclaim what he thought was his. I barely rolled down the window. Nick, why are you here? He smiled, too bright, too rehearsed. We need to talk. I parked, got out clutching my bag like a shield. No, we don't. He followed quick steps echoing mine. You can't just throw away 3 years over one comment. Watch me. His eyes flickered anger flashing beneath his faux sweet tone. He tried again, louder this time. Shelley, I make more than you. Don't act like this promotion suddenly makes you better than me. I stopped, turned sharply. My voice didn't shake. It's not about money, it's about respect, which you don't have for me. He scoffed, raising his voice so the few employees crossing the lot could hear. I respect you. It was endearing. That's why I called you a loser. Endearing. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I kept my tone even, every syllable sharp enough to cut. Endearing doesn't look like humiliating your partner in front of her boss. We reached the glass doors of the building. My security badge shook slightly in my hand as I swiped it. The guard behind the desk was already watching, brows knit in concern. Nick pressed closer, desperation leaking through his words. This is your fragile ego talking. You can't handle me teasing you. No, I said, stepping inside as the door clicked open. What I can't handle is abuse dressed as humor. The door shut between us. Through the glass, his voice rose, shouting my name, trying to follow his palm, smacking against the door. The security guard stood crossing his arms. Nick's words were muffled now, reduced to a desperate echo in the lobby. I didn't look back. By 10 word had spread across my floor. People glanced at me with that cautious kindness, the kind you give someone who's endured something you can't quite name. My boss Marcus called me into his office. He leaned forward, his voice steady. Shelley, Friday night was unfortunate. But for what it's worth, no one here thinks less of you. If anything, the way you carried yourself, professional, graceful. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. HR also wanted me to tell you. He added, if Nick shows up again, security will handle it immediately. You don't need to face this alone. I thanked him, but a part of me knew this wasn't the end. Nick wasn't finished. He never let go quietly. By Tuesday, the texts had shifted tone. Gone were the pleading apologies. Now they were edged with blame. Very mature of you changing the locks. I need my things. This is a legal eviction. My dad is a lawyer. His father was a retired dentist, but sure close enough, I guess. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a new voice, his sister. Shelley, what did you do to my brother? Adriana's voice was sharp, accusing. I broke up with him, I said flatly. He's a mess. He hasn't eaten. He hasn't slept. He might lose his job because he can't focus. How can you be so heartless? I pressed the bridge of my nose. Heartless. My career was nearly derailed because her brother thought humiliation was entertainment. Adriana, I replied, voice low, controlled. Your brother called me a loser at my promotion party. In front of my entire company. That's why we're done. Silence crackled through the line. Then her indignant reply. That's not what he told me. Of course it wasn't. Wednesday, a package landed on my desk at work. At first I thought it was flowers. Some misguided apology. It wasn't. Inside, a letter from an actual lawyer threatening to sue me for emotional distress, illegal eviction, destruction of property, defamation. I laughed, out loud. My team looked over curiously. I slid the papers into an envelope and sent them straight to our company's legal department. One perk of promotion: legal covered personal harassment if it interfered with work. By the end of the day, the email back was curt. This is frivolous. Don't respond. We'll handle if it proceeds. Thursday, Nick went nuclear. On Facebook, yes, Facebook, he posted, 3 years wasted on a woman who couldn't handle a harmless joke. Now she's illegally evicted me, destroyed my belongings, and is trying to ruin my life. Narcissistic abuse is real. Know your worth. The comments didn't land the way he hoped. His Aunt Honey, what exactly did you say at the party? A mutual friend. You called her a loser in front of her boss. That wasn't harmless. His coworker, man, this ain't it. Sure. Some of his friends chimed in with the usual, yes, King, she's toxic, you deserve better. But the truth was out there now, tangled in threads he couldn't delete fast enough. I didn't comment, I didn't defend myself, but inside a chill settled in my chest. His spiral wasn't slowing, it was accelerating. And I knew it was only a matter of time before his obsession took a darker turn. Friday morning, I thought I had learned to tune him out. My phone was silenced, his number blocked, his Facebook rants ignored. But Nick didn't just want my attention. He wanted my destruction. By lunch, my inbox exploded. Dozens of new LinkedIn notifications. Sadamskers viewing my profile. Clicking deeper, I realized the pattern they all worked at his company. Then I saw it. He'd posted publicly, learning to cope with workplace harassment and the fragile egos of women who can't celebrate someone else's success. Toxic work culture is real. Speaking my truth. He had tagged my company. My blood ran cold. Within an hour, my boss called me into his office. Marcus looked grim but steady. Shelley, we saw the post. Legal is already drafting a response. Don't worry. You're the victim here, not the problem. By end of day, the post was gone. Corporate lawyers moved faster than Nick could type. But his desperation wasn't done. That night, just as I'd settled into bed, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. My heart lurched. Nick, standing on my porch, and with him 2 police officers. I opened the door cautiously. Ma'am, we're here for a wellness check, one officer said. Someone reported you may be in danger of self-harm. I blinked, stunned. What? Who called that in? A man named Nick. He said you've been threatening yourself, that you have weapons in the home. I almost laughed. Weapons, unless you mean my kitchen knives. Behind them, Nick piped up his face the picture of fake concern. See, she admits it. She's unstable. Please just get her some help. My voice trembled, not from fear, but rage. Officers, this is my ex-boyfriend. He humiliated me at a work event. I ended things. Now he's harassing me. This report is false. The officers turned their eyes narrowing at him. Sir, do you understand filing a false report is a crime? He spread his hands. It's not false. Look at her. She's clearly not well. She's lost weight. I've been going to the gym more, I snapped. That's called self-care. One officer pulled out a notepad. Ma'am, do you want to file a harassment complaint? I looked Nick dead in the eye. For the first time, I didn't feel fear, just clarity. Yes, I do. They took my statement while Nick protested in the background, his voice cracking with desperation. As they escorted him off my property, his mask slipped completely. This isn't over, Shelley. You can't just throw me away. The officer's voice cut back firm. Sir, you need to leave now. The next morning, I stood in front of a judge. My hands shook as I signed the paperwork, but when the gavel came down, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Relief. Temporary restraining order. 2 weeks until the full hearing. It wasn't over. Not yet. But now the law was on my side. For the first time since that night on the rooftop, I felt like I had room to breathe. 2 weeks blurred together, stretched thin between work deadlines and the looming restraining order hearing. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest tightened, even though legally he wasn't supposed to contact me. But Nick found ways to get around the silence. He started a podcast. I wish I were joking. The Gaslight Diaries: Surviving Toxic Women. By episode 2, he was essentially describing our relationship, except in his warped retelling, he was the victim. He painted me as a manipulative narcissist who used my promotion as a weapon to emasculate him. He described the rooftop party as if I had abandoned him in front of Sadamskers who laughed at his pain. Episode titles scrolled across my screen. When Her Success Becomes Your Prison. The Night She Showed Her True Colors. Financial Abuse in the Modern Age. His voice shook as he spoke not with regret, but with conviction, like he believed his own lies. The podcast had maybe 50 downloads, 30 of those were probably him refreshing. But hearing my life twisted into performance art was chilling. Then came the email from his boss. It was a short, apologetic note forwarded by a mutual contact. Nick had been terminated. His final straw, posting confidential company information on LinkedIn during yet another rant about toxic workplaces and controlling women. He was unraveling publicly. The day of the hearing, I stood outside the courthouse with my company's legal team beside me. My palms sweated despite the crisp morning air. Nick arrived late, dragging along not a lawyer, but a paralegal friend. His eyes darted toward me, anger and desperation tangled into something feral. Inside, the judge listened patiently as his friend tried to spin evidence. Screenshots of my unanswered texts. A photo of his boxed-up belongings labeled as destruction of property. Excerpts from his podcast. My lawyers laid down the counter pile. Witness statements from 12 coworkers who saw the rooftop scene. Security footage of Nick shouting outside my office. The LinkedIn post tagging my company. The false police report. Documentation of him messaging my family. The judge barely deliberated. Restraining order granted. 2 years no contact, direct or indirect. Nick slammed his hand against the table, his voice rising. But what about my things? What about closure? The judge's voice was cool. Your belongings can be retrieved by a representative. Closure is for therapy, not this courtroom. I exhaled the tension draining from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt the faint flicker of safety. That evening, just as I began to believe it was truly over, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, I froze. A U-Haul sat outside. At my doorstep stood his mother, a weary woman in her 60s, eyes apologetic. "I'm here for Nick's things," she said softly. "He told me you had his grandmother's ring, the one he was going to propose with." I stared at her, stunned. There was never a ring. We never talked about marriage. She sighed, shoulders heavy with defeat. "I know, I just had to try. He's not well, Shelley. I'm sorry for what he's put you through." I guided her to the lobby, where the boxes waited under security supervision. As she loaded them into the truck, she looked at me again, her voice low. "For what it's worth, even I was shocked when I heard what he said at your party." For a moment, sympathy softened the air. Then she left the truck, rattling into the night. And I stood there watching it go, finally feeling the weight lift. Nick had lost his job, his reputation, his freedom to contact me. And me. I had gained something far greater. Myself. It's been a month since the rooftop party that changed everything. For the first time in years, I wake up without dread pressing down on my chest. The silence of my apartment isn't loneliness anymore, it's peace. The restraining order sits folded in a drawer, its presence like a shield. I don't even need to look at it. Knowing it exists is enough. Word spread at work about what happened, of course. My team treats me with a careful kind of respect now, not pity, but solidarity. A few even admitted I wanted to throw my drink at him that night, which made me laugh harder than I thought I could. The truth is, my career hasn't just survived, it's thriving. The promotion is still demanding, but I finally feel like I belong in this role. And my personal life, unexpectedly lighter. I started seeing someone new. A guy from my gym. It's early casual, but there's something refreshing in the way he celebrated with me when I got a raise last week. No eye rolls, no backhanded comments, just genuine joy as if my success was his too. It's wild how foreign that felt at first. Sometimes I replay that night in my head. The rooftop lights, the silence after Nick's words, the smirk he thought was clever. And I remember the glass in my hand, my voice steady. I am the same woman, the one smart enough to walk away. He was right about one thing I haven't changed. I am still that woman, the woman who knows her worth. The woman who won't tolerate disrespect disguised as love. The woman who understands that leaving isn't weakness, it's survival. The other night, I attended a team dinner, a real one with laughter and warmth filling the air. At some point, I realized I wasn't waiting for the insult for the dagger hidden in a joke. I was free. And as the evening ended, I raised my glass again this time, surrounded by people who lifted theirs with sincerity. No smirks, no humiliation, just celebration. Walking away from him wasn't just the best personal decision I ever made. It was the best career move, too. Because it reminded me of something priceless. Success means nothing if you're forced to shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. And love real. Love doesn't clip your wings. It helps you fly higher. The city lights shimmered through the restaurant window as I stepped outside, cool night air brushing my face. For the first time in months, I inhaled deeply and it didn't burn. Nick may still tell his story. He may still believe he was the victim. But that no longer mattered. Because my story, the real story, wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. Shelley Adams, 31, promoted,